him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the Pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
Good evening. We welcome you to another edition of Road to the Pit Live, a high school basketball journey. Road to the Pit is a show where we feature high school athletes and coaches here in the state of New Mexico and talk about their accomplishments on and off the field. Road to the Pit is produced by New Mexico Alumni Media, part of the Pit Press. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nick Nunez. Our other co-host is Ed Nunez. Dad, how are you doing tonight?
Good, son. Looking forward to talking to our guests. We're going to have a great show.
And our guest tonight is starting guard for the St. Pius girls basketball team, Catalina Anaya. Catalina averages 11 points per game, 5 assists per game, 5 steals per game, 5 rebounds per game. And we are very lucky to have Catalina on tonight. Catalina, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. So, Catalina, we are excited to speak with you. We know you have a big game tomorrow. It is the district tiebreaker. You guys will take on Valencia at 5 p.m. at Highland High School. You guys are coming off a win on Friday, 52-32 over Highland, 17-7 on the season, 7-1, tied for first in District 5 4A girls. State tournament is right around the corner. You know, Catalina, one of the first things we wanted to ask you was about this season in particular. This season is a little different than your sophomore and junior seasons. We know you've been on varsity at St. Pius for the girls basketball team since your freshman year. But your sophomore year, you guys had a fantastic run all the way to the semifinals. You won 14 games in a row. Last year, your junior year, is the best season that St. Pius girls basketball has had since they won state back in 2009. You guys finished the season on a 21-game winning streak, made it all the way to the state championship where you fell short to Kirtland Central. This year has been a little bit different for you, though. 17-7 on the season. You guys lost a district game this year to Valencia earlier. It's the first district loss you guys had since, I think, the 2022 season. You guys had won 20 district games in a row. But you guys have battled some adversity, one as a team, and then you yourself have battled some injury this season. Talk to us a little bit about the adversity that your team has faced this season and how you guys have overcame that.
Yeah, so I think one of the main things is the chemistry we have. As you know, like we've had a set 5 every single year with 2 or 3 coming off the bench. And even though a lot of our players have been here since the beginning, not a lot of them have been like playing or played a lot of minutes. So I think one thing is just learning each other and learning our positions and like knowing what our skills are and stuff. So I think as we've came to the end of the season, we've started to like recognize each individual talent that each other has, which has helped us to like become more of a success.
Sure, sure. And that's a good point, Catalina. Now, from last year's team, the state runner up, you guys lost a few key pieces. Alyssa Mays, the 2-time district player of the year. Desiree Ortiz was another huge part of that team last year. This year, they bring you back. They bring fellow senior Bella Candelaria and fellow senior Macy Freeze back. They've had to grow into some bigger scoring roles than they had last season. And then a couple other girls, Jana Castillo and Jalen Alloway, only an 8th grader. They've had to step up into bigger roles as well. Talk about, your teammates, those 5, and how they've really stepped up this season.
Yeah. So again, coach has always said like for each game, we all have a role and like we all have to fill that role. That doesn't mean you're always going to score or you're always going to do this. One of the main things that Desiree brought to our team was she was really good on rebounds. And though Jay is very young, she really brings that to our team. She always finds the ball somehow. She's always really good on defense, which, as my dad has always told me, the possession matters. Having the ball in your hand matters. So those little things that help us is like really important and is what succeeds us to win. And for Jana too, she always comes in and like does her role and gets the boards and stuff. And even the other girls, they come in, score a couple points, and that's exactly what we need in order to win. We don't need like them to score 20 points a game, but the little points help build the momentum and get us going.
For sure. Dad, I'll turn it over to you for the next question.
I'm going to say a little something about when you lost Alyssa Mays and Desiree Ortiz, and Jana Castillo and Jalen Holloway had to grow into that. You mentioned that. And those pieces you lost were important, part of a state championship run. State championship semifinal or final. You lost in the final, but a 21-game win streak says a lot about that. So players had to grow into those roles. You and Bella, the unquestioned leaders of that team for sure. But let's talk a little bit about defense. I know Coach Rohde, an excellent coach, an excellent player back in the day for Rio Rancho, the Gatorade Player of the Year. Played in college. Connects to know with anybody in the whole game, man. Really, really impressed with her coaching. You average 5 steals a game. I think anyone who knows basketball, that's a lot. That's some teams don't get 5 steals a game. Talk a little bit about how you've taken pride in playing defense and how that fuels other parts of your game.
Yeah, so ever since my whole career of basketball, I haven't really been or seen myself as a scorer. And I know my contribution has always been defense and getting the rebounds or the steal. And that's how I contributed to my team. And even coming in high school, with Alyssa, I know Alyssa's a scorer, and me getting the steal and finding her, that was important. And I knew that was my role as a person. And but it's always been my favorite thing. I just love the high I get if I steal a ball and get a fast break. And then it just brings momentum and energy into the gym. And I feel like that's a really key aspect whenever you get that fast break or the steal that changes the game.
Defense to offense, like you said, in Pius, my son and I were there on Friday night when they played Highland. My son played at St. Pius. And so there was crowds there, good crowds. And you mentioned when they get excited, they get excited. You always have a good student following there. And steals and defense will definitely get people excited. Let's talk a little bit about your junior season. My son kind of led into that. You guys went on a remarkable run of finishing 26-4 last season, losing a tough game to Kirtland Central in the state championship. Kirtland Central has beaten Gallup twice this year. They're pretty darn good, man. They beat Gallup and they've been at Kirtland Central. So that's no shame in losing to them. They're very good. 21-game win streak to end the season. Undefeated district champions, and I think that's amazing. You haven't lost a district game since 2022. That speaks a lot for the program that Coach Rohde's built there. You were named second team All-State and first team all district. Talk to us about what it meant to you to be a part of a team that won 21 games in a row, winning 2 games in the pit, and then playing in that state championship against Kirtland Central. You came up short, but anytime you're in a championship game, man, the mood, the atmosphere, the whole thing. My son and I always feel that when we go down on the floor before the game and talk to the coaches and the participants. Tell us a little bit about all that if you can.
Yeah, so since freshman year, we work in the summer really hard, and we continue day in and day out just to progress and build individual and team skill. And so last year was like a real like success, knowing all the work we put in like came and we like accomplished it. And we did fall short, but it was just like the stepping stone. Winning 21 games and having a winning streak and stuff was just nice, knowing that the work you put in at the end of the day has a goal, and like the goal you accomplish is like, it's just nice. Yeah.
Son, go ahead.
Catalina, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about your head coach, Bree Rohde. As my dad mentioned, Coach Bree Rohde was a heck of a player. Quick story for you. My first time meeting Coach Rohde was actually playing pickup basketball at Midtown Sports and Wellness when I was still in high school back in 2009, I think 2009, 2010. And she was by far the best player on the floor, no questions asked. And she just talked smack, and I was like, I just wasn't expecting, and I got kind of humbled a little bit. I say that because, I've watched a lot of your games. I've watched a lot of your games kind of since your freshman year. And I know Coach Rohde fairly well, not that well, but fairly well. And I know she'll take those early timeouts. If she feels like you guys aren't playing, the way that she wants you guys to play, or if the game's not flowing the way she feels like it should flow, she'll take that early timeout. And I've heard her, kind of rip into you guys a little bit during those timeouts. But that's only a microcosm of who Coach Rohde is. I know she's built a phenomenal culture there. She's built a family. I could tell you guys are together and you guys love each other. Just talk to us about what it's like playing for Coach Rohde.
When I first started, Coach was scary to me.
For sure.
But honestly, as time has gone on, she's become more than a coach to me. She's like family. She's always there for everybody, no matter what, basketball on the court and off the court. And at the end of the day, obviously her goal is to win, but she's proud of us as long as we accomplish everything we can do and we go out with our heart and everything. And she's like a really great person to have in your life, no matter what. She's really passionate about the sport, which is something I love because I'm really passionate. And it helps to have a coach that wants to push you to know, or to like the best of your abilities, which she's someone who does that. No matter if in the moment you think she's being hard or whatnot, she pushes you to your full potential, and then we get better. And I've seen so much growth from individual players on my team because of the way Coach pushes us and stuff.
Coach Rohde, her mother, Charlotte, was a St. Pius star back in the day. At the old St. Pius, which my son never saw, you never saw. I went 1 year there. It's where Uptown Shopping Center is, and her mother was a heck of a player. So and then she was coached by Bobby McIntyre at Rio Rancho High School, and then played in college. So when I watched her meet my son, I coached my son. My son and I play together. Now we broadcast together, so we share a love of the game. So my son and I will talk about coaches, and especially during timeouts. And when I look at her, sometimes even when I did your game at the academy, oh boy, yeah, I seen it, I saw it, and that's her. That's I love that. For me, I like that, and it has to be. You have to. It can't be just yelling and screaming. There's teaching. She's a teacher, and I see her teach. And if you're not doing things right, she's going to let you know about it. And yeah, I could see where she would be scary, but I could also see where you develop that relationship that you have now with her. Tell us a little bit about your experience playing. You played club basketball in the spring and summer. You played on some really competitive club teams, including CY, Fair Elite, and the New Mexico Select. Tell us a little bit about playing experience of your club experience, playing club basketball. How that is, because some people say AAU, some people aren't a big fan of it. They're not. But you tell us how has that made how that has made you a better basketball player?
Club has honestly built me into the player I am, specifically my coaches, Coach Freddie and my trainer, Coach Bruno. Going out of town to all these crazy states, Chicago, all these girls are huge. They're like really big, 6-foot guards, everything. And it's really intimidating, but it helps like from now to just like it creates me to the person I am because of all the challenges in this or like that these out of state girls have. They're all quick, they're all fast, they could all shoot, they could all defend, they could do everything. So it's just like that challenge is like a stepping stone. And I haven't always played like a whole game in club, but like getting little minutes has helped me to become the player I am and has helped me grow.
Absolutely great answer. And I could see that my son played AAU and we'd travel and some of those teams in Phoenix. Yeah, I can, and you but it makes you better. At first you see these players and you're like, oh my goodness, wow. And then you make a play, you make a steal like you do, you score, all of a sudden relax. You feel relaxed. Go ahead, son.
Catalina, just a quick follow-up on that. Did I read right that you did play last spring and last summer with Cy-Fair Elite?
So I played in not last summer because I had surgery on my ankle, but the summers before that I did play.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the same club team that Bella Hines plays for. Is that right?
Correct.
Have you had the opportunity to play with Bella on the club circuit?
Whenever I was younger, me and Bella played together when we played for Select.
Sure.
But as we've gotten older, I haven't played with her.
I'd like to see your on-the-ball defense against Bella Hines, Catalina. I think, you'd have the ability to turn her, put her in a different direction. She's got some length and she could shoot, but no, I think you'd give her a run for her money for sure. Wanted to ask you now about playing Kirtland Central and Gallup. Obviously those are the two top programs in girls 4A here in New Mexico. They kind of have been for the last few years. I mean, Kirtland Central won state last year, the year before that, your sophomore season, Gallup won it. You guys have, and I think Coach Rhodey does this for a reason. She always puts Gallup and or Kirtland Central on the schedule, so you guys get that experience early. Your sophomore season, you guys went and played in the Gallup tournament, and when I spoke with Coach Rhodey, there was kind of a scheduling issue, and so you guys ended up playing Gallup on that final Saturday, and you guys played them tough. I actually went back and watched the NFHS stream. And you guys came back in that game, and it was a second half comeback. You guys cut it to 2. You were a big part of that. And then obviously last year you guys played Kirtland Central in the state championship. You also played them earlier in the season and then played them again in the state championship. And you guys were up 14-6 at the end of the first quarter. But tell us a little bit about your experience playing against Kirtland Central and Gallup, and how you think that prepares you if you were to see those teams in the state tournament.
Gallup and Kirtland have really high IQ, and I think that's one of the hardest parts because skill is obviously important, but IQ is most important in my opinion because they have really good court vision. They could see the open person on offense. They know how to get the pass to them, and then obviously they could score all around. They know how to drive. They know how to shoot. So I think we know this about them, and our biggest thing is like locating shooters and being aware and knowing like personnel of each individual, which ones just shoot, which ones drive, or which ones could do both. But I think our biggest thing is we have to work as a team and communicate on the court and talk through, hey, I have here, or you have there, because I think we played Kirtland in the beginning, and one of our main things that got to us was our communication and lack of awareness of knowing where certain people were. So I think that will be really important to just know who's on the court and what they could do. And then also building our IQ to be able to be like matched with them.
No, I think those are all great points, Catalina. And then I wanted to ask you about kind of what the atmosphere is like playing at Gallup or playing in the state championship last year. It was on a Friday against Kirtland Central. They bring a ton of fans. I mean, basketball is so big up there in the Four Corners. What's it like playing against Kirtland and Gallup against those kinds of crowds?
It's honestly scary. It's a lot of anxiety just seeing the pit like covered with
Sure.
so many people. Or even Gallup, when we played Gallup my sophomore year, there was so many people. And obviously it's like an adrenaline rush too, because it's like, oh, you're hyped and you're ready. But it's also a little nerve-wracking because you're like, there's so many people. But I think once you get like on the court and you find your groove, like that energy and that atmosphere like amps you up and like gets you going. As long as in the beginning you don't get in your head and like you keep your composure, it's honestly so fun. I love it.
For sure, for sure. No, it's a great atmosphere. One game at a time. You know, you guys got to take care of business tomorrow night against Valencia, then the rest of the district tournament, and then state starts. Wanted to shift gears a little bit, Catalina, and talk to you a little bit about your hobbies outside of basketball. Talk to us a little bit about the things that you enjoy outside of basketball, maybe a favorite class that you have at St. Pius High School. What is Catalina Anaya like off the basketball court?
One of my favorite things to do is bake. I love baking. It's really calming and relaxing and like you could be creative with it. So that's one of my favorite things.
Sure.
My favorite subject last year I took AP psychology, and that was definitely really interesting, or this year anatomy, because I think like the brain and the body is so interesting. So those are definitely my favorite like topics or subjects.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a baking specialty, like something that you can make that is just killer and bomb that everybody else likes?
I always make chocolate cakes. My family says they're the best, but I mean, they might be biased. I don't really know.
No, I bet they're pretty good. I bet they're pretty good. And then you said you took AP psychology. Is that something that you think you may want to study in college after high school?
Yeah, well, it's always been like one of my top like jobs that I wanted to have, like a psychiatrist. I've always wanted to be a psychiatrist because, like I said, the brain is really interesting to me and like how it develops and how it works. But right now, I'm kind of leaning to dermatology too because the skin also interests me.
There you go.
So I don't know what I'm leaning to.
Sure. Dad, I'll turn it to you.
Well, it's funny, Catalina, because I can tell you the story that when my son went to Pius, I used to tell him, "You're not here to be no basketball store, boy." Guys, over and over and over. You know, we wouldn't invest in his education. You know, and I'm proud to say, you know, I hate to brag, but my son works for the Department of Justice. You know, he just started that job 3 weeks ago, and I'm very proud of him. And so he made the most of that education. And it sounds like you already are thinking about that, the brain and the skin. There's a lot of interesting things that you're already looking at, not just basketball, right? Basketball won't last forever. And you're already thinking about goals for the future. In line with that, goals for yourself. There's still, it seems like the season's going to end so quick, man. It comes like that, right? And then you mentioned the state tournament and the atmosphere and the shooting background. Everything's so different at the pit. But you got the tiebreaker game tomorrow, then the district tournament and the state tournament. Talk about a little bit about goals for yourself that left in the season.
So my goals are definitely get first team all district again. That's really important to me. I'm hoping to be like have an opportunity to be player of the year for district too. So that's definitely a goal. But overall, winning district, like just district, because like we've won the past 2 years and then won the tournament too. And then just getting to state. But at the end of the day, win or lose, just like having fun with my team because I know this is the last time I'll be able to do it with them. And I feel like our bond has been like one of the biggest things to me. So just enjoying the last moments I have with my team is really important.
Definitely. So Catalina, I wanted to ask you the last couple questions. First one's kind of a silly one because I get this question all the time as a St. Pius graduate. What is your understanding of what a sartan is?
I I don't know.
Fair,
I've
right?
always Yeah, I've always actually wondered that too. Like, I'll look it up and it looks like a lion type thing,
Yeah, yeah.
but I actually have no idea if I'm gonna be honest.
No, that's fair, and I think that's, the school mascot that shows up to your guys' games. I think, it's safe to say that that's probably what a Sarton is. All right, back to getting serious. You guys got a serious game tomorrow against Valencia. It'll be the third time this season that you guys play them. The first time they got you at home, 41-31. I spoke with Coach Rhodey. She said you guys missed 26 layups. But you guys got them last Friday on Valentine's Day at their place. You beat them 35-26. What is it going to take for you guys to win that tiebreaker tomorrow and win the regular season district championship?
I'm going to
I
cut
think
in right there because we all know that a sartan is an Italian tailor. Go ahead and answer that question.
There you go. Thank you, Ryan.
That's funny. I think so. One of our biggest things losing the first game was, again, our layups. We missed a lot of layups, but one of the issues we had was our defense, like our rotation, being help side. That was really like a key aspect that kind of lost the game for us too. And we really fixed that on the second game. Our defense was incredible, in my opinion, in my coach's opinion. We really fixed like the little things, which defense wins games. And I think that we have to come with that same intensity and that mindset and being like, oh, help side, help side. And again, knowing personnel, we know that Jaden's a shooter. She could drive. That number 4, Jaden, she's a post. She could hit a jumper. And, just knowing like who the individual scores are. And obviously their other girls contribute, but we have to be aware of who they are and what they are and like their talents. But then again, even though defense is really important, we need to be able to score.
Sure.
So one of our biggest things is we have to take wide open layups. Like we have to find the right shots, not forcing anything because that's like the biggest thing. If we force things, then they get the ball in their possession. And then it's like kind of like we don't want back and forth. We just want like the ball in our hands for as long as we can to get a good shot and stuff.
For sure. Dad, any final questions for Catalina?
No, Catalina, I've seen you play. Like I said, you and Bella went down against the academy with some injuries. You guys got back out there. My son has done a lot more of your games than I have. But I look forward to seeing you in the state tournament. Best of luck, and looking forward to tasting some of those cakes, man. When you
Thank you.
you bet.
So our guest tonight for Road to the Pit Live was second team All-State, first team All-District guard Catalina Anaya. Catalina, we wish you the best of luck tomorrow night against Valencia, and we look forward to seeing you down the road.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
You bet.
Of course, of course. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay with us here on Road to the Pit. We'll be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Welcome back to Road to the Pit Live. Our guest tonight was St. Pius starting guard for the girls basketball team, Catalina Anaya. Dad, what did you think of Catalina?
I really enjoyed the interview, and you've done a lot of their games over the past 2 years. So I've watched her play at the state tournament, and as I mentioned, I had a game earlier this season. So you've always kind of told me, and I've watched her myself. Good player, very good player. But I always like to find out what's their interest outside of basketball. She mentioned it: baking, the human brain, skin. She's got in Pius, that kind of school there. Ryan's a graduate. Rick Thompson's a graduate of Pius. You are. So I think it's a great institution of learning. Obviously, that's why we wanted you, your mom especially, wanted you to go there. So I enjoyed her. I really did. And the excitement you get, you saw that when you were at the Pit, when you played as a junior and then as a senior. You played against Espanola when you were a junior, and that crowd there was sold out Pit. So yeah, it's she's getting excited, geared up. She's got some goals, and I really enjoyed what her goals are after basketball. I really enjoyed it. A great interview, great selection.
For sure. And I'll just give a two cents real quick. Real humble kid, humble player. You can tell she's team first just watching her play. We got to see her today on camera, and she was so gracious to come on and answer our questions. But just watching her play, watching her interact with her teammates, I think she's a great teammate. And I truly believe she is one of the best on-the-ball defenders in New Mexico, regardless of class. So that's my piece on Catalina Anaya. Let's switch gears real quick and see if our producer, Ryan Samari, can pull up this NMA selection criteria. That is the class, or that's the latest NMOT coaches poll that's up on your screen now. And right there is the selection criteria that the NMAA uses to seed teams in the state tournament. I think it's a hot topic right now because we got the district tournament this week, and then Selection Sunday is next Sunday, March 2nd. You'll have plenty of options to watch the brackets. The NMAA does their own bracket with JP Marietta, and then ProView Networks will also be airing a live bracket show. We'll break down each bracket and pick some winners of the brackets. But the criteria, if you look under section 7.11.2, subsection B, Ryan, if you'd be so gracious, those are your 6 criteria points right there. Finish in regular season district play, head-to-head, wins against district champions, regardless of class, overall record, max preps, Freeman rankings, and member school input. The most important piece of criteria is your finish in regular season district play. So St. Pius girls, Valencia girls, great example to illustrate that piece of criteria. Tomorrow's tiebreaker game at Highland at 5 p.m. is super important because if St. Pius wins that game, that means that Valencia comes Selection Sunday, next Sunday, Valencia cannot be seated higher than St. Pius in the state tournament, even if they beat St. Pius on the other criteria points, those being head-to-head, wins against district champions, overall record, the rest of the criteria points. Though your finish in regular season district play is the most important piece of criteria. And I think you'll see that there in the note. That's what it says right underneath. But, this criteria, is it perfect? Some say it is, some say it isn't, but this is what the NMAA uses. I think it's about as perfect as a system as you can get to sort teams out fairly, because the NMAA has a heck of a job to do. They've got, 10 different classes, Dad, for both boys and girls, and they've got to have some objective criteria points to seed these teams. But what are your thoughts real quick, Dad, on the criteria?
Yeah, and we've seen this when we do our you were part of the selection show last year at ProView Networks. You did a great job in breaking down, as you usually do, your research. So yes, yeah, we've gone over this, the finish of the regular season head to head, and there's always going to be some controversy about the seeding and selection, and there's going to be a school or two that's not happy. We've seen that happen. I believe Las Vegas Robertson wasn't happy with their seeding. Was it 2 years ago? Yeah, it was 2 years ago. And that's just an example. I'm not trying to pick on them. The criteria you mentioned, Nick, that it's somewhat. Is there any system that's perfect? There's not. But they've been using this system for a long time. There's always going to be one or two things that maybe didn't go right. But for the most part, I think they do a good job of getting it right. I really do, as far as seeding. where teams are going to play. There might be an argument about a team saying, hey, and you've heard this, we deserved a higher seed. We deserved a home game. That's why the district tournament for some teams, especially Valencia and Pius or Highland tomorrow, or Valencia and St. Pius with the playoff. I think Pius is already pretty locked into a home game for sure in the first round. I would say that. So a lot of things still at play here in the district tournament this week. So that's why these selection and seeding process is real important. We go over that. We're going to be on the seeding and selection show next Sunday with ProView Network. So we'll go over this and at length. And people are, again, Nick, nothing perfect. No system is, but I think the NMA does a pretty good job.
Let's see if we can pull up the boys NMOT coaches poll again, courtesy of our producer, Ryan Tamari. This is the NMOT coaches poll that came out February 18th, 2025. That was last Monday. You see the 5 classes there, starting with Class 5A at the top left corner, all the way down to Class 1A in the bottom middle. Class 5A, Dad, I think it's obviously pretty safe to say Volcano Vista is the team to beat, the 3-time state champions. Coach Greg Brown, just the run that he's went on is phenomenal. They've had 2 close games against Sandia this season. We've talked about those, one in the Metro Tournament Championship and then one earlier in the season. Sandia had them on the ropes. The first time they played, they were up by 16 points in the first half. If there's any team that's deep enough and has enough talent, it's Sandia. And obviously, I'm not the first one to say that. But just give us your quick thoughts, Dad, on Class 5A.
We've talked about it. Volcano Vista, the 2 games that they lost were in an out-of-town tournament. And Greg Brown, the Volcano Vista coach, has insisted that his team isn't good here, not good there, trying to make sure that they're still hungry. I think they beat Cibola the other night, 93-32 or something like that. And Cibola is a very good team. I might be wrong about that score, but they beat them pretty good. So it's going to. But you mentioned Sandia with Thomas Adams, Gad Harris. They're right there in the Metro tournament, and they lost 2 close ones to them. But a lot, I think it's Volcano Vista that's probably, they're going to probably win again. But at the state tournament, you never know what's going to happen. A bounce here, a call there. That's why they play the games. But I would think Volcano Vista's look what they got. They an overwhelming favorite. Awino, Cillian, Ryan Gonzalez set a record scoring 62 points, 17 3-pointers about 3 weeks ago, and he's their 3rd option. David Lund is a man-child. So they're Awino might be the best big man we've seen come through here in a very long time. So they're the overwhelming favorites, and it'd be a shocker if they lost.
2 other teams I want to talk about real quick in Class 5A, and then we'll get through some of these other classes. Albuquerque High and Atrisco Heritage are 2 teams that I really like in Class 5A. You and I had Atrisco Heritage on Tuesday of this last week. They defeated West Mesa. They're getting healthy, and we talked to Coach Steve Heredia about that. Right now, Atrisco, they have 2 guys back that they had out with injury. They're a team that likes to play pretty fast pace, up and down. They got probably one of the best scorers in Class 5A in Latavius Morris. So now that Atrisco Heritage is healthy, I think if they get the right seed in the state tournament, you'll see them back in the pit. And one thing in the pit, man, you've seen this, Dad, is guard play. If you have good guards that when you get a lead that can take care of the basketball on that big floor at the pit, those are the kinds of teams you don't want to see. And then with Albuquerque High, I don't know what their winning streak is right now, but I'm not sure if they've lost since the APS Metro tournament. They've got, I want to say 7 or 8 seniors. Ali Morales, a senior, Noah Barella, Coach Leroy Barella's son. Very dangerous team. They made a run last year and made it to the state semifinals. So those are 2 of maybe my sleeper teams in Class 5A that I like. Let's quickly go through some of these other brackets. We'll start with Class 4A. Obviously, St. Pius boys and Artesia are there at the top. Artesia actually lost on Friday. They lost a district game to Goddard, and I was just kind of looking through schedules this morning, kind of thinking about the selection show next Sunday. I was like, let me get a head start on this. But to see Artesia lose a game in district, I think is something that everybody here in Albuquerque or kind of north of Artesia was like, there's no way they're going to lose a district game, but they did. I think St. Pius, even though Artesia has St. Pius on the head-to-head, St. Pius might have them in criteria points. A couple other teams to look out for in Class 4A, Albuquerque Academy. I think I don't know if you've seen them, Dad, or maybe you've talked to Coach Alvin Broussard or somebody else, but Albuquerque Academy has has a brand new coach this year with Alvin Broussard. They lost like 85% of their scoring from last year. And there you see them ranked 4th in the NMOT coaches poll. They are likely going to get a top 5 seed in Class 4A.
Great rundown there. And St. Pius, well deserving of their second ranking. Artesia, a little bit of a surprise there. I had Mike Mondragon on earlier this season, and on the sports desk we had Charlie Campbell on Road to the Pit. That's a little bit of a shocker that they lost a district game. They're pretty loaded. So I think Artesia and Pius, the top teams. Academy, Hunter Amy, the big man, they've been coming on strong. Alvin Broussard sat out 3 years after coaching at Sandia, and came back and has done a great job over there. Highland's beat up. We saw them the other night against St. Pius. The defending champions have had a lot of injuries. The other night they don't. Jesus Licon, the leading scorer at 4A last year, looks like a shadow of what he was last year. He averaged 30 last year. In one game he scored 54. And, the other night, St. Pius defended him very, very well. So they don't look like the same team that they were last season. You know what? And I think Pius on the uprise, they're undefeated in district. And, they're the second-ranked team in the state. And they're rolling right now. They played very well the other night. We saw Isaiah Carpenter dominate inside like we had not seen him. Josh Darling defended well. They hit timely shots. Mason Montoya, their senior. So I kind of like Pius the way they're playing right now in 4A.
2 other teams real quick in Class 4A. Then we'll take a quick look at 3A. And then if we have any time left, we'll talk a little bit about the girls coaches poll. But 2 teams from the north, Milwaukee Valley and Espanola Valley. You see Espanola Valley checking in at number 3 in Class 4A. Coach Joey Trujillo has done a fantastic job with them, Dad. This is a team, Espanola Valley might have more pride and tradition in basketball than any other team in 4A. And man, when they're good, the pit packs. They conveniently usually get that 6:30 p.m. tip-off on the Wednesday quarterfinal game. And it's just so special when Espanola Valley is good. Wouldn't you say, Dad?
You know what? Yes. And, Joey Trujillo, the former head coach at Mesa Vista, and he's been around the north, has done a very good job there. And, there's someone to look out for. Milwaukee Valley, Ryan Cordova, the former head coach at Northern New Mexico, has done a good job there. So, there's some other teams to keep an eye on. Valley with Easy Panas. They're a little bit down this year, but they've still got some pieces there too. But I think the one you mentioned was the Academy. I think that's really a team that you need to keep an eye on, trending upward. We always look at towards the end of the year. Where are they trending? And right now, the Academy is in Milwaukee Valley is trending up. As you mentioned, Del Norte is another team that likes to press. They've got some, under Gerard McIntosh. Keep an eye on them too. They're a pretty salty bunch.
And then the number 10 team, Silver, just won district on Friday. Another team to keep an eye on there in Class 4A. Real quickly about Class 3A, you see St. Mike's, your number 1 ranking in the Class 3A NMOT coaches poll. St. Mike's, Tehachapi, Robertson, your top 3. Tehachapi's only lost 2 games on the season. That's a Four Corners team that I think a lot of people here in the Albuquerque metro area don't know about. I was looking at their schedule and their stats that are posted on Max Preps. They got 2 guys that average 18 points per game. They're going to knock off the state champion from last year, Navajo Prep. Tehachapi and them are in the same district, and Tehachapi won the regular season district championship there. Robertson, some controversy surrounding the program with their head coach. That's all over and done with now. I think they've won a couple games in a row since Coach Branch has left the team. Class 3A, always an exciting class to watch, Dad.
Well, at St. Mike's, they brought in a new coach from Clayton. And, one of our listeners, John Romero, St. Mike's graduate, wants us to make sure we mention the Horsemen. And your former head coach, Damian Segura, had graduated from there. So St. Mike's has had a very good season. Robertson. And you know what? Look, James Branch has been around a long time, coaching. And when you lose your head coach, you lose a little something. We won't get into the particulars of what happened or anything like that. But once you lose your coach, there's a drop off there. So Robertson's still dangerous. And you mentioned Navajo Prep, last year's champ. They lost a lot, but they're still in the hunt too. So, but right now the Horsemen look pretty darn good.
We'll take a look now at the girls NMOT coaches poll, starting with Class 5A. Dad, everyone says Hobbs and Sandia. Those are the 2 teams that likely will end up in the state championship. They did play the first game of the season. It was the first game played, I think, in the Albuquerque metro area in kind of mid to late November of last year. But quickly, your thoughts on girls class 5A?
Well, you know what, Sandia looks pretty good. They're a loaded team. They really are. But Hobbs and Joe Carpenter, I believe Coach Carpenter's won 3 or 4 state championships. They're going to be in the hunt. They did play that game early in the season. Sandia won convincingly. A lot's happened since then. Sandia's got a senior-laden squad. You know, Sydney Benally, Hope Giddings, Audrey Wright. They're very, very good. So that's going to be an interesting tournament there. And La Cueva's pretty good too. La Cueva's got some. They've got Jordan Dyer. So there's some teams in 5A that are pretty good. But at the top of that is Hobbs and Sandia.
Dad, you had Albuquerque High girls basketball coach Terry Morrison on your show, The Sports Desk. I think it was last week. Tell us a little bit about them.
You know, real quick, Coach Morrison has won 754 games overall. Coach came from Texas, went to Santa Fe Indian, and came to Albuquerque High. And she believes, her team with Pavia, the 8th grader, she really believes, Pavia's only, as we mentioned, averages 13.5 a game, has another player averaging 14 a game. She believes that they can make a run too. They lost the game to La Cueva, but they had a player out. They had won 11 in a row before that. So Coach Morrison has a lot of experience. Knows how to coach, and I think they've played, as we mentioned, trending upward towards the last part of the season. They've done very well.
Quickly, girls class 4A. We had Catalina Anaya on, so we talked a lot about this class. Obviously, you see Kirtland Central and Gallup there at the top. They've played twice this season up in the Four Corners district. Kirtland, likely the team to beat. Gallup, their only 2 losses on the season are to Kirtland Central. St. Pius going to have their hands full tomorrow in the district tiebreaker game. We'll see if ProView Networks has coverage of that game. Again, it's tomorrow at 5 p.m. at Highland High School. But I think Kirtland Central and Gallup, the teams to beat in girls class 4A. It's going to take a lot, but I think St. Pius, Valencia, Portales is a team that's been playing pretty well this year. Academy, also a team that's been playing pretty well. You had them earlier this year, Dad, when they beat St. Pius. Addie Spratley, Coach Skarsgård's done a phenomenal job with them as well.
He has. He's done a real good job, and they're, again, trending up. I think they won 20 games, I believe. So that's a team that might be heard from as well.
So that'll do it for this version of Road to the Pit Live. Our guest was second team All-State, first team All-District starting guard for the St. Pius girls basketball team, Catalina Anaya. A reminder to our listeners, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Check out our page at The Pit Press. If you like our show, please hit subscribe and hit like. We thank you for everyone for tuning in. Again, this has been Road to the Pit Live. Stay tuned. We'll have a breakdown with Ryan Tamari, Eric Moulton, hopefully Philip McDonald. We'll talk some Lobo basketball coming up next here after these commercials.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the Pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
As I've told everybody when I'm hosting the show, you get the AAA. Hey, how's everybody doing? Shout out to Ed and Nick Nunez. Nick's the better half tonight because he's able to join us. Talking to Catalina Anaya. I got that right? Correct.
Catalina, but yes.
Yeah, well, that's the Polak Hungarian in me. Hold on, let me fix this. Oh, I did fix that. Fix this. I didn't add anything about baseball. All right, now we'll get the show rolling. Great interview, Nick, and to your dad. I really, really appreciate that. My name's Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. Let me thank those that have made the show possible, and then I'll introduce our guests. Dulce River Bakery and Coffee, Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, and everybody knows I love saying this, Tim Baca Sr., Tim Baca Jr. over at Hydro Bar. Nick, would you have wanted to be Ed Nunez Jr.?
No, I love my dad, but there can only be one Ed Nunez, and that's him. So no.
I love your dad's story about the being confused for the former athletic director Ed Nunez. That's great. Affordable Solar, affordable service, heating, plumbing, and air conditioning for your HVAC needs in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. Affordable Service has been in business in New Mexico since 1986, and it is still locally owned. During that time, they've served more than 40,000 customers, providing complete residential and light commercial HVAC services, including heating, cooling, electrical, and plumbing. Affordable Service takes pride in its staff commitment to the Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. Nick, you've already made your introduction, but I'll throw it over to you. How you doing?
I appreciate you, man. I'm doing good. It's nice to speak with St. Pius starting guard Catalina Anaya, and now ready to talk some Mountain West hoops and UNM basketball with you and Eric.
Well, you know how I feel about any but guests from St. Pius. So to a capital and a state champion and my business partner in this endeavor, his name is Mr. Eric Moulton. It's been a hot minute since we've been on the show together. How you doing?
It has been a hot minute, but Nick, Ed, I know you're listening. I always appreciate a good New Mexico high school hoops talk. You guys are always kicking ass with that show, man. I appreciate it. I hope a lot of the fans high school fans and just viewers and listeners appreciate it too. But happy to be back on and happy to talk some Lobo hoops.
No Rick, no Jacob tonight, no Ed. I apologize for that. So we've replaced him with somebody who played for the Lobos. He played from 2008 to 2012. Phenomenal player under Steve Alford, also a role player, unselfish dude. His name is Philip McDonald. Phil, how you doing tonight? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be on the show. I love to talk about the New Mexico Lobo hoops all day and every day. So thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. I guess I'll throw this first question over to Phil since we've got him on the phone. What did you take away from the Boise State game? I know they didn't play when you were in the conference. You didn't play them. but it's notorious a hard place to play. What were your takeaways from the game?
Actually, we ended up playing them. They joined the Mountain West Conference, I believe.
Was it
You might have
2011?
to correct that. I think it might 2011.
My
Yeah,
bad.
so I happened to go up there and got to experience that environment. I would say it is not quite the pit, but for some reason, playing in that area, in that region, it's always hard to play up there. Like Wyoming, going towards north, always find quite incredible challenge just going up there because it's a different environment than what we experience here in the Southwest. It's all bright here, and over there it's kind of a little bit gloomy. So I get that feeling that it could be a challenge up there for sure.
Nick, I'll start with you. Just your thoughts in general on the game. Phil, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. I'll actually start with a question with Philip or for Phil. Phil, once again, thanks for being on. I'm Nick Nunez. I don't know if we've actually met, but thanks for being on with us, man. I listened to the post-game show with Robert Portnoy and Hunter Green. They interviewed Philip Borovichinen after the game, and he said that CJ Nolan and a couple other guys were battling the flu. And I'm sure that happens, man. You know, everybody gets sick, but when you're sick in Division I college basketball, how does that affect the team and affect your play?
Oh man, it affects you a ton. Just kind of imagine them battling the flu. You know, you're trying to get yourself ready to go. You're already getting over a cough or a cold or whatnot. And then you're trying to prepare for a basketball game. It's very challenging. I will tell you what, Lobos, they've been doing pretty good, but with that injury to Amsiel, makes things even quite more challenging because your bench is depleted from, you have a typical player that normally will come off the bench. Now he's starting. And then the rotations get changed. And then the rhythm, the guys on the that's coming off the bench is no longer, he's trying to become a starter. So his rhythm is off right now because he's been coming off the bench the entire year. So it's an incredible challenge, especially this time towards the end of the season. Fatigue starts to factor in, especially from your superstar. It starts to factor in. This part of the season gets really, really challenging, and you need your bodies. You need everybody ready to go, especially from the bench perspective.
I'll turn it over to Eric.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks for joining again, Philip. Appreciate it, man. But I want to stay with kind of the fatigue part of it. It's a long season, right? Lobos are riding high. They won an 8-game winning streak, and Boise State is essentially playing for their lives, trying to make it to March Madness. But leaning into more of like the mental fatigue, right? Like it didn't look like the Lobos were as sharp defensively. This is a team that kind of limits opponents to, I think they average about 70 points per game, but Boise State 86. So how much of that you kind of just talked about with the rotations, guys having to fill in roles that they might not be as familiar with, how much of the mental fatigue part kind of plays into the defensive side?
Oh, it a lot. It does. It's challenging because the Lobos been riding high for a long time, right? They've been winning a lot of ball games, close games, a lot of these different scenarios, right? It's been really incredible journey. What typically happens to a team towards the end of the season, it gets challenging, right? There's a lot of film on you. So the coaches are already strategizing because they have about 3 or 4 set of film, and some of these opponents that you already played them, right? It's your second time playing them. So you're going to have to put in extra work, all right? You're going to have to do something creative that you haven't done before. That takes a lot out of you. And defensive wise, a lot of that is just effort and energy. We're a high octane energy effort type of team. When we have energy and effort, we're a tough team. I mean, we rely on our defense more than anything to create a lot of our offense. So our effort has to be there every single time. And unfortunately, it gets tough towards the end of the season. Injury starts happening. You got guys battling flu. Right now, it's just going to be a quick, rough period, but they're going to bounce back as soon as we get everyone back. But it's just that part of the season where you got to tell yourself that, hey, you got a few more games. Hopefully, you guys can capitalize this and win the Mountain West Conference and win the Mountain West tournament and then win some games in the NCAA tournament. That's your thought process, but you have to really got to grind it out. This is where you rely on your bench players to really step up.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it was one of those flush down the drain games and turn it over. I think they'll prime to make a better game next come out. But you talked about preparing for players, right, and having lots of game film and being able to kind of strategize against what teams have been doing. But one player in particular that kind of lit up the Lobos in this game, he was pulled, or his red shirt was pulled mid-season. Leon Rice made the decision. Pearson Peanut Carmichael, true freshman. He was a two-time Oregon State Player of the Year in high school. 6'7", 6'8", really good shooter. Started this game. He actually started in the last game too, but I'm not sure how many he finished with exactly, but he hit 4 or 5 3-pointers that just seem to kind of catch the Lobos off guard, and there's just not a lot of film on this guy. I mean, you being a shooter, how do you in-game adjust to that when you don't really have much of an answer for him when he's feeling it like he was?
11 minutes and 2 points.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I was just letting Eric know the box score that he had against Nevada. But Phil, you can go ahead and answer the question. I'm sorry. I wasn't being a good host. Go ahead.
No worries. I was confused. I'm like, hold on.
My bad.
More than 2 points. No worries at all. All right. So yeah, go back to your question about shooters. Yeah, I mean, the BoiseState coach is really good. Leon Rice, if I'm saying it correctly, man, he's really smart and he knows who he has. I mean, I was listening to the commentators and they mentioned about he's been lighting them up there in practice. So this kid already has tremendous confidence. But preparing for that and preparing for shooters usually don't like guys in their face. They don't like the guy that's really going to that's going to make them put the basketball on the ground, right? That's really going to put pressure on him. It did throw us off surprise. It did throw us a surprise because, for one, he was kind of inconsistent, right? They kind of pulled him out of the nowhere. We really don't know him that well. You start hitting shots, you kind of like, you give him that space, you start hitting shots, and you're like, oh crap, who is this kid? Who is this? You know what I mean? We got to adjust. We got to adjust in game right away. We got to figure this out. A lot of times teams got to adjust on the fly, and it's harder when the effort and the energy is not there. You know what I mean? When your demeanor's down, you're battling, just trying to get yourself going. And that's just one extra battle that you have to fight with, because now you got a shooter that you have to account for. You got Dagenhart, who's always a tough player in the Mountain West. You just got all these different challenges, and now you got to switch up a player that would normally guard point guard, like True Washington. He has to go and guard Carmichael instead of the point guard. So a lot of those things are just in-game adjustments on the fly, and it's tough to do, especially right now, because you don't expect teams to change who they are. But BoiseState is one of those teams that you got to be real careful with. They can win it. They can win the Mountain West tournament. They're that capable.
Nick, I'm going to throw it over to you after this, but I wanted to let you guys know this is what Leon Rice said. Phil, this is what Leon Rice said after the game about Tyson Dagenhart. Quote, "Well, we take Tyson for granted. He had 32 points off 16 shots. That is pretty efficient. And, when you've got him out there on the court, you feel pretty good. That's probably why I never take him out." I thought that was pretty funny. Nick, throwing it over to you.
Yeah, Phil, looking ahead now to San Diego State, that's who the Lobos got on Tuesday. Lobos knocked them off. I think it was on January 11th. It was a Saturday
Hmm.
game where it was sold out in the pit. Final score 62-48 UNM. UNM held San Diego State to 20 points in the first half and out rebounded them in the offensive glass 18-3. You talked about it kind of earlier on here tonight. It's hard to play teams twice, man. Talk about kind of the challenges of playing a team twice, beating a team twice. The script is always different the second time around.
Yeah, so yeah, plenty of film. Like I mentioned earlier, you're gonna have that. The coaches at this level are really smart. Um, Guys that are playing at a high level actually study you and study the game because they want to be the best in their field. So you're going to be hit with all these challenges. Now you got a bunch of guys that are going to their counter move instead of their regular move, instead of their first initial move. So you got guys that are adjusting on the players that are adjusting on the fly as well, and you got to adjust to that as well. Now, San Diego State looking forward. San Diego State, the first game they didn't play well against us. We actually played really good defense against them and out rebound them. That's an incredible job by us. But now this time, I guarantee their focus are going to be shifting towards, hey, we got to out rebound these guys. We got to make sure that we establish, make sure we get some stops on the defensive end and stop Donovan Dent from driving into the paint. They're going to be really keen on Dominant Dent, and Nelly Jr. Joseph. So who's going to be that X factor that's really going to step up for us, that's really going to throw a wrench in their plans? I think that's going to be the key. And also, I know San Diego State's going to be really hungry. They're coming off a loss by 1 point to Nevada. So they're going to be extremely hungry and eager to win this game. And they might be dealing with some injuries as well. I think his name was Magoon Guat, if I'm saying it right, guys.
Yep.
Yep. So he got hurt. So he's not going to be feeling good if he's playing. That's a bonus for us as well. And we're trying to win this thing. So we got a lot of things going for us, but it's at their place. And that's going to be a huge challenge. San Diego State is not an easy place to play.
Yeah, I was going to ask you real quick about that, Phil. I know you've got some experience playing at Viejas. The venues in the Mountain West are just so special, obviously with Spectrum and Utah State, the Pit. But where does Viejas rank in your ranking of other teams' college venues?
Man, it's up there. I would say it's probably one of the better crowds in the Mountain West. Why? Because their fans are incredibly energetic. They come up with all kinds of insane chants. They're not afraid to talk bad about you and call you out in public and make fun of you. Just imagine just a bunch of students just doing their homework on you. That's what Viejas Arena brings. They're loud. They love it. They want to bring the energy, but they're also not afraid to act a little crazy in the stands. So, wow, you just got to stay focused. Can't worry about the fans.
I thought it was really funny that I was going to ask you that, but Nick beat me to the punch. Phil, I'm going to mention Mike Mades, because he said he went on one of the trips and the show, and I had heard grumblings the other day that the student section isn't what it used to be. But I remember Mike telling me, he was like, yeah, man, he goes, they were even giving me they were making fun of me. And he was like, it was actually pretty good. And he was like, I tipped my hat to them. He goes, I thought that's how good the show was like 15 years ago. So I thought I had to interject that there.
Sure. Yep. That was funny.
Any of you guys have any other questions?
Yeah, I do have one more, Phil, before we let you go. You, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Kawhi Leonard, do you remember playing against him? I just want to know kind of the level of talent, because he's all-time NBA. Can you describe maybe any vivid memories you have playing against him, or just some of those games? Because, I mean, as I remember, even the teams you played on, Tony Snell, right, like Kendall Williams, Hugh, those games were epic. Do you have any vivid memories of that time against, those pretty storied rivalries against San Diego State?
I just remember Kawhi Leonard. He had incredibly large hands. Kawhi Leonard was hard to guard. He was tough to guard. He was I would say more like a swing forward at that time. He loved to be in the paint and bang with you. He wasn't a guy that wasn't afraid to get in the trenches and even bang against the bigs. He was versatile. He was a guard that you just didn't know what to expect. He'll post you up, or he'll kind of pull up with a nice little jump shot. Wasn't a 3-point shooter at that time, so I wasn't too worried about him shooting threes like he is in the NBA. But he was incredibly physical, especially for a freshman. So I kind of knew he would be special just based off of how hard he worked. You can tell he was a gym rat. And then you can just tell that this guy was incredibly skilled, high-skilled basketball player at the time. So, those are my memories of him. But those games were epic, incredibly challenged at the Vias Arena. I'm not gonna lie. The show, Mike Midas, what he tell you, it is absolutely true. They did get on Mike Midas. They did get on everybody. It was actually funny. I enjoy crowds like that. I mean, any competitor, they love road games because it just fills you when people are talking crap about you all day and every day. You just kind of feed off of that, and it get you going.
Phil, I'm go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I just had one more question because actually one came in the
Mhm.
comments from Joe the Jeweler, so I'm just going to pull it up. Phil, hope the injury is healing well. Who was the toughest matchup you remember playing against back in your college career?
Oh man. Oh. Let's see here. I played against some incredibly tough guys. Isaiah Thomas. Let's see. Jimmy Fredette. I gotta say Jimmy Fredette for sure. I mean, goodness, this guy was very tricky. Very tricky. I had a chance to play with him before he turned into the Jimmy Fredette of shooting the ball deep. And when he started shooting the ball deep and hitting at a consistent rate, that was kind of special because he was the Steph Curry in college basketball. And then we had to go play up. And you go play up, you feel like you're on an island. And then when you step back, he's shooting a three on you. So he was tough to navigate. It was tough to play against because of that. It kept you thinking for sure. But that wasn't my assignment. I had to credit Doris Gary because I wasn't going to touch him.
That's I hope that helped with well, not on Jimmer Fredette, but the fact that Doris played running back. Doris is one of my favorite guys to talk to. No, Phil, I love you, and I tell this to every Lobo we have on. 1A is Ferris because Ferris has the best stories. I just wanted to let you. Thanks for joining us tonight, by the way, Philip McDonald, UNM Lobo guard from 2008 2012. I'm going to tell you this because when I interviewed Jimmer and Kawhi on the top of the ramp at my Daily Lobo days, so I'm using that clout right now. And I shook Kawhi Leonard's hand, and it was true. Like he literally wrapped his hand around. I mean, you've met me. I gained weight. I got fat.
Mm-hmm.
So what you've seen when you saw me in New York and at the games, I'm fat now. But I was a super skinny dude. And when I met Jimmer Fredette, same thing. I interviewed him when you guys knocked him off, I think in 2011 in the pit. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, his upper body was ripped. Like his biceps were bigger than my thighs at the time. And then I looked at his legs and he had chicken legs. And I was like, what is wrong with this guy? I mean, he was super nice and he was cool, but I looked at him and I was like, no wonder he could shoot. I don't know. It was weird. I know that's a weird story to tell you, but I just looked
long limbs.
Yeah, I don't know, man, but he and I hate to bring this up to you and the Lobo fans listening, but I was at that game in the second round of the Mountain West semifinals in 2011, and he just went off. He had like 30 at half, and he finished with 55. But there was a point in time where Kendall, and I think maybe you, and I think Doris got hurt, but Kendall like walked it, like Jimmer hit a three, and then Kendall walked back down the court and like matched a couple of his threes. And it was, man, it was a really entertaining first half. But I was there for those, and I know those games, and I know you played, and I'm going to shut up now. But man, those were some great Mountain West days. So I appreciate you reminiscing on those.
Yeah, man. Matter of fact, I got one story for you guys.
Go right ahead.
You just reminded me. Yeah, you just reminded me. Okay, I got one story. It's a Jimmy Fredette story. All right, so Jimmy Fredette came to the pit. I mean, he's just torching us, right? He's doing a pretty good job. Well, Jimmy Fredette used to guard me, and I made a great move. I did like a little mini crossover, went by him, got an easy layup, and I'm over here kind of like trying to talk trash to him, to getting in his head a little bit. And he didn't do anything but respond back to me. He's like, Phil, that was a great move. Man, where'd you get that move from, man? You got to show me that next time. And I was like, I'm looking at this dude and say, if this guy don't shut up and start talking trash back, so the entire game, I'm trying to talk trash to him, and he's still talking about that one move. I'm like, you just hit a three from deep, and you're talking about this one little move. I just told him to shut up after that. And then he still didn't shut up. He was still being too nice to me. So, yeah, that's what type of player he was. He was like one of those players that you couldn't really get in his head, and he's too nice, and he would play mind games with you. Yeah, so you could be careful of those type of players.
I am glad you shared that story, because I thought that's where you were going right when you said you had a good move, and I was like, he was going to tell you, man, that's a great move, and like give you a thumbs up. Sounds like BYU, but anyway, Philip McDonald, I appreciate you for joining us for 15, 20 minutes tonight. I will let you get back to your Sunday night. I'll bug you down the stretch, but thanks for joining us tonight, man.
You're welcome. Take care, guys.
Have a good
Thanks
night.
for having me on.
Yep. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Appreciate Philip McDonald joining us. I thought that was really an awesome interview. I wanted to get his thoughts, because he said he was able to join us, and try not to stick with you much longer. I know we're pushing on 8:30, but I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the BSU game, and then we'll give a little bit of preview about San Diego State, and then recap and just list some games that are happening this week. I'm just going to start here. You guys know I'm not the X's and O's guy. I thought this was a dangerous game. I was hoping that, Boise State's 12-1 up there, and they played stellar defense. I think UNM scored maybe the most points that had been scored in the arena on them this year. I'd have to double check that stat. But what I just wanted to say is there was no quit in this team, especially towards the end of the game. I mean, when they went on a 9-0 run, I think Alvaro, I almost said Alvino because I knew an Alvino, Alvaro Cardenas. I knew an Alvino Contreras, forgive me. But Alvaro Cardenas said after the game that he didn't really think the score was that, indicated. I mean, they went one on an 18-2 run there in Boise State. And then we found out who Pearson Carmichael is. Fantastic name, fantastic nickname. But I just wanted to throw this out there. I didn't think there was any quit in this team. I thought that was pretty impressive. But it's not an easy it's not an easy place to play. And I think if they can split on this road trip, and it's an unusual road trip because you play Wednesday night in Boise, you don't play this weekend, and then you're in San Diego State. So I'm sure they came back. You flew to Boise, you flew to the Pacific Northwest. Not that that's really that far to go. Come back home, and then you go to San Diego. I think that's a little bit unusual for this team. I hope they haven't peaked at the right time, but also probably losing that game, and Boise might be poised to make a run because I think Tyson Degenhart, they've got some talented players. I didn't know if they were that good. I don't know. You keep to your game and maybe make teams get out of theirs, which is what I think they did. But I was impressed that there wasn't any quit, and I'll throw it over to Nick. Your thoughts about the Boise State game?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Ryan. They made a run at it. They went down by as many as 19 points. The difference in the game was about 17:30 to 11:45 in the second half. Boise State goes on that 18-2 run that you mentioned. In that stretch, UNM had 3 turnovers and went 0 for 3 from the field. And during that same stretch, that's when Pearson Peanut Carmichael hit 3 of his 4 threes in that game. So it's just everything that could go wrong for UNM during that stretch went wrong. I think we've seen a lot of people comment on Twitter. And I think Philip Borovichinen said this in the post-game interview as well. It's almost like Boise State was beating us at our own game. I don't know how many turnovers we had in this game. I'd have to go back and look at the box score. It was certainly over 10. But I thought that was a story in the game as well. We just had way too many turnovers, man. Nelly had some turnovers. Dent had a couple. One thing that Boise State did defensively, and I mean, this is no secret, I'm not the first person to say it, but they were trapping Donovan Dent on pick and rolls. They were like, we're going to get the ball out of his hands, and somebody else from UNM is going to have to beat us because it's not going to be him. I think when Boise State did that, this team started to turn the ball over a little bit. We made a run at it, like you mentioned, Ryan, at 123. We get it to 11. We got it to within single digits. They just needed that run just a little bit earlier, probably, 3 or 4 minutes earlier. There's enough time in the game for us to climb back. But I was proud of the fight that we showed. And I think, we'll be ready to play against San Diego State.
Eric, I'll get your thoughts, but I have to go to one of my main dogs. Oh, no.
Miguel Sanchez.
Had that on mute. Thank you, Lionel Hutz. Lobos look tired and beat up. They got rolling late. A little too late. There you go, Eric. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think they looked a little mentally fatigued to me, right? They're on an 8-game win streak. They're playing some of the best basketball out west, getting a lot of national recognition, right? Patino getting nationally recognized, so potentially being coach of the year. Donovan Dent kind of being recognized for being a really good player. So I think that it was in due time, that they were not really due for a letdown. I'm not going to call it a letdown. I just don't think they had a great game. They didn't shoot really well. It was a game they definitely missed Amzil, because in the first matchup, I thought Amzil, being on the floor, more experienced player, he comes in at 6'9". He's a shooter. They just match up better with a bigger, more physical Boise State team, and they just missed that this game, right? I think Jovan has done a really good job of filling in for Amzil in a lot of games recently, and actually scoring a lot, but he didn't score this game. He went 0 for 4 from 3, so wasn't really impacting the game in any sort of way. So I think they missed Amzil a little bit, mentally fatigued, and they just didn't seem to have it, right? Like, have it in quotation. Didn't really play well on the defensive side. Throughout the season, their defense, they've limited teams to an average of 70 points per game. And in this one, they allowed Boise State to roll it up to 86. So just kind of uncharacteristic things kind of rolled out. I think Nick touched on those turnovers, just lazy passes, not really sharp with things offensively. A combination of things, right? I just don't think that they played a good game, and Boise State did beat them at their own game, but Boise was also a lot hungrier and almost in not in a panic mode, but they're just had more desire this game, because they're essentially playing for their playoff lives right now. They're almost at that point where they need to win the Mountain West tournament in order to get into the big tournament. I know that they're kind of being floated around as being the next 4 out. I think BJ Rains tweeted something this morning claiming that. So I don't know if they're dead in the water just yet, but this is a team that's playing for the lives, and they're playing really good basketball, man. They beat Nevada and Reno last night. They're playing really inspired, and they're getting contributions from just about everyone other than Alvaro Cardenas and Deggy, right? Like in the game against UNM, Peanut Carmichael went off for 21 points. He hit a bunch of threes. I don't think the Lobos even anticipated having a guy come off the bench and be able to shoot like that. So really hard team to prepare for. And then Carmichael starts this last game against Nevada and has, what did you say earlier, Ryan? He had like 2 points.
11 minutes and 2 points.
He didn't have that much of an impact in the game, but it was Andrew Meadows who stepped up and finished with 24 points for Boise. So I think there's good cause and good reason around the Mountain West and around the league why Boise State was picked to finish first in the league in the preseason polls. This team is loaded. They just haven't played their best basketball all season long. And man, it's really hard to see them come in like a full freight train ahead right now. They're playing really good basketball. They're playing inspired, and they're led by one of the best like preseason player of the year in Degenhart. So I wouldn't necessarily count them out. That was a good team that beat UNM. It was just they were much sharper against the Lobos and played a much better game. But it was one of those games that the Lobos just need to flush and look ahead, because I think overall that the Lobos are probably more talented than they are.
I have to do this because of Andrew Meadow. And you know my love of The Simpsons.
My eyes, the goggles do nothing.
He wears goggles. That's one of the best lines in the entire Simpsons series, and you have to understand the context of the episode. But yeah, he went off last night. He had like the game-sealing dunk. To your point, and thanks for that, Eric, as I was looking for that clip. Omar Stanley knocked down some shots and was playing hard, something that he hasn't done lately. He's the St. John's transfer. He played 15 minutes, took 3 shots, didn't miss them, hit on all 3 shots. He had 7 points. I think he missed a free throw. Then he had 3 rebounds and 2 assists, which helped them out immensely. I don't know if anybody else has to add, and we'll wrap around the Mountain West from last night. But I don't know. I thought maybe they were due. I mean, a lot of people thought they were due, and that was the game that was going to do it. Anybody, either one of you, have any other final thoughts?
Last thought I have is just better to lose now than lose in a couple weeks. I think it's good to get one out early, taste a little adversity, see what losing feels like, and then you got to bounce back.
You sound like me. I wish your dad. Oh no, Eric's on. I wish your dad was on. I think you'd rather lose to the Giants in September than the Niners in January. I'm sure that you would rather lose now than, I don't know, Gonzaga on March 20th or 21st. Just throwing that out there. As I've said, as I've preached on this show last week, you've done the Mountain West. Debbie does Dallas. You've won the Mountain West. You've won conference title. You've won regular season titles. You've won tournaments. You've had a record. You've had the 3 seed a couple times. You got back in last year. I don't care about that anymore. If you get in, win there. That will change my entire perspective of this program that has always been inching there. Air Force, switching kind of gears to last night or yesterday around the league. Air Force wins in overtime. They beat Fresno State. But Fresno State had more, and I'm not going to delve into this because I don't understand it. And I guess, as Eric said, these are a bunch of bench guys. But this is from ABC 30 Action News. Fresno, California, according to ESPN sources. I'm just going to read this very quickly. Action News has learned 2 of the 3. There should be a car on fire, like flying over a river on a ramp. When I say Action News has learned that 2 of the 3 Fresno State men's basketball student athletes accused of sports gambling allegedly placed bets on games they actively played in or sat on the bench. I haven't paid that much attention to Fresno State. According to ESPN sources, Fresno State has removed junior forward Michael Robinson from the team and suspended guards Jalen Weaver and Zayon Collins for their potential ties to sports gambling. Sources tell Action News that Robinson and Weaver allegedly placed bets that the Bulldogs men's basketball team would underperform on points and rebounds. So there you go. And they lost to Air Force yesterday. That's fascinating. I'm continuing to wait for that story to grow. I didn't catch San Jose State and Wyoming and Eric, thank you for writing Laradice. You must know me by now. Josh Daisy went for 29. I watched the majority of the games. I went to the women's basketball game yesterday. Eric, you watched that. That was a big win on the road for San Jose State.
Yeah, and they're playing still a little hobbled, right? Because McClendon is still out, but they're getting another spirited effort. I think Coach Miles just finds a way to work his magic, and they're continuing to knock off teams. Aduje had a really solid game, finished with 29 points, and then they also got some contributions. Davis came off the bench to put up 17, and as everyone kind of in the Mountain West knows, it's really tough to make that trip out to Laradice and win. nonetheless. But they won. I think Wyoming did take the lead in the second half. At one point, for the most part, San Jose State controlled the game, controlled the pace, and a lot of that had to do with Aduje. But San Jose State is one of those teams that's kind of trending upwards right now, and they're not completely healthy. But once they do get healthy, right, they already knocked off the Lobos. I think this team might be poised to knock off someone in the Mountain West tournament. Mark it down now because they're talented enough. Coach Miles is a really good coach and likes to match up guys for certain scenarios and situations. And all it takes is for one or two guys on that team to really get hot. And this team is kind of they spread it out a little bit. So any of those guys are more than capable of doing it, as us Lobos fans watched a couple weeks ago when they knocked them off in San Jose. But Nick, I don't know if you watched any of that game or had a chance to. Did you have any thoughts on it?
I didn't have the chance to watch either Mountain West game last night, so unfortunately I didn't don't really have a lot of takes on it. I have seen San Jose State fairly recently. Yeah, the guard play that they have, I mean, we saw that on display the 2 times they played UNM when they're healthy. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know where they would be seated right now if we had to seed teams today. But there's a chance they'd be on the same side of the bracket as UNM if UNM did get the 1 seed. And if you're UNM, that is not a team that you want to play.
No, that's going to be the cliche for the next 3-4 weeks. That's a team you don't want to play, but it's true. Like it's completely true. I'm not knocking you there, Nick. It's just you're going to hear that phrase a lot. Boise State. No, I caught the last 20 minutes, the second half of Boise State and Nevada, and man, that was the game I would say of the day. Even though San Diego State was at Utah State, Andrew Meadow. The goggles, they do nothing, had a really big game. He stepped up. He had 24 points. Holy moly. 24 led all Broncos scorers. Kobe Sanders had 30 for Nevada, who's a very good player. Andrew Meadow had 24, 6 of 8 from the free throw line, 8 of 13 from the field, hit 2 threes. He also had 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and assist. Very good game from him. I think he's from he's from Santa Clarita, California, which the announcers were talking about how great basketball was there. I thought he had a kind of the game sealing dunk there at the end. Nevada hit a 3. I think that put him up 4. But I don't know. That was an impressive win. And I know I mentioned what Leon Rice said post game against UNM. As long as they have Tyson Degenhart, he's going to keep him on the floor. Kobe Sanders had 30. Eric, I know you watched, and I love Nick Davidson. We had a good Jacob Rick and I had a good conversation with him. Nick Davidson at 18. He had like a big and one late in the game, and it was back and forth. You watched it. I was texting you. It was a really good game. To me, it was the game of the day in the Mountain West. Your takeaways from it?
Yeah, really, really entertaining. Kobe Sanders is the real deal. Like everything you want in an NBA prospect. He's 6'9", plays the guard spot, and he's just a creator off the dribble, right? He knocks down threes. He's a good passer, but he's really good in the mid-range. Boise had a really hard time kind of limiting him. He got his, but Nick Davidson also chipped in, what would you say, 18 points. Rollison, that little point guard who didn't play against UNM. I don't know if we ever got clarification on if that was kind of what Alfred elected to do, but he finished with the solid 7-7-7 game. So 7 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, kind of spread it out. But yeah, the story of the night is definitely Andrew Meadow. And then I'm also going to throw Jovan, I'm not sure if I'm saying it that right, or Javen Buchanan for Boise State. He came in off the bench and put in 17. Degenhart with 16. Cardenas had 8 points, but he also had 9 assists. So Boise State is just kind of slowly creeping up through the shadows right now, right? Kind of coming back to life after almost being ruled dead. And they're getting contributions from guys on their bench. And this is kind of a scary team heading into late February, early March. But yeah, that game was super entertaining, back and forth. I think it was a pink out night for Nevada. I did question Steve Alford's choice in the first half when Nevada was kind of controlling most of the game. He jumped into his zone that Boise State couldn't figure out, right? That's when Nevada built their lead. I think that lead got to 8 or 9 points. and then he pulled them out of it, and Boise State kind of went on their own run and pulled within just a few points right before halftime. So kind of a questionable move on my part. I don't know why they never went back to it, but nonetheless, it was a fun game. It was kind of your traditional Mountain West late night game, and I think we're starting to see a lot more of those now.
Nick, I know you didn't watch it, but I mean, when you hear that, I mean, what Boise State's done the last week.
Yeah, well, I just think about when we had BJ Rains on, what was it, last Monday, Ryan? And,
Yep.
I watched his post-game show after Boise State fell to San Diego State. What did they put up 47 points in that game just a week ago? I mean, just a week ago. And look what a week does for Boise State. They get a big win at home against UNM. They defeat Nevada. They've got Utah State at home next week. And they had Utah State on the ropes at Spectrum. I mean, arguably, that's a game they should have won. They shot the ball really well. So when they can get contributions from those role guys outside of Cardenas and Degenhart, this is the team that everybody thought was going to be, one of the better teams in the Mountain West. Leon Rice has gotten Boise State to 3 straight NCAA tournaments. When I hear that, not terribly surprised about Boise State. Nevada, man, a team that started the season really hot in non-conference play and then just has kind of deflated. I know there's been some rumors around on X that Nevada fans want Steve Alford gone. But when you got players like Nick Davidson and Kobe Sanders, those are 2 playmakers. They're a team that could be dangerous in the Mountain West tournament as well.
I will move on to San Diego State and Utah State, and obviously the headline was Magoon Guath going down. It looked like a season-ending injury. That was something I actually didn't look in today. I didn't do a good job of that during my early spring cleaning of my house. But he went down in a nasty spill. I looked away when it happened. I was trying to write the recap on the girls' game, and being that I work for myself. Not really under a hard deadline. Obviously, I wanted to get it up as early as I can, but I got sucked into Boise State, Nevada, and in that game, and I just heard the announcers, and then they let them play. Wasn't that the Vern Harris game, or was that Boise? No, it was Utah State, because Ian Martinez, he was down on the floor with the San Diego State trainer, and the refs let it play, and Ian Martinez dunked the ball essentially on that side of the court, which I thought was great. But he went down, and I know a lot of people in the comments, and I'll finish the show with the comments. That's a big blow for them. I thought they stuck well with Utah State, and they even had the lead there late. And that just, to me, speaks volume of what kind of coach Brian Dutcher is and the Steve Fisher disciple. They're not as talented, and I know they've never been as talented. I mean, you can go back to 15, that 2010-11 team was loaded. I was mentioning it, Malcolm Thomas, DJ Gay, Malcolm Butler. I don't think Billy White was on that team. He was the year before. But, man, I think he's that good of a coach, and it was pretty – side note, and Jeff Grammer and Will Weber were talking about this post-game, one of the games, I think, last week. And the pit is crazy. And this was what Jeff was saying. But to hear the Spectrum and the student section in there, what a student section they are. They are phenomenal. I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying, damn, it was pretty awesome. But lost my train of thought with that. So, Eric, I'll just throw it over to you. I don't know. It's a talented team. I don't know if they have the offensive firepower to keep up with teams. I'm sure coaching could get them into this thing. Lafarty still has them as a 10 seed. I don't know. But I kind of like, without him, I like the Lobos on Tuesday night. I really do. But just your thoughts on the USU game.
Yeah, I thought there was a comment made, I can't remember his name, by one of the commentators on last night's game, kind of talking about, not necessarily speaking on Brian Dutcher, but just overall depth of a team. And you mentioned it too, Ryan, coaching in San Diego State. Magoon Guath is probably their most effective player, right? They kind of build the offense around him outside of Miles Bird, right? I'm kind of removing Miles Bird from the equation just because last night he didn't have a solid game. I think he only finished with 8 points, so he didn't really have that much of an impact. But right, Magoon Guath goes down. they had to spell him with Farrell Compton and DeGorville, who are both true freshmen, and they both saw significant minutes, and they thought they held their own. They played well, but the story for me were the two guards, right? BJ Davis and Nick Boyd, the transfer from Florida Atlantic. BJ Davis finished with 14 points and Nick Boyd finished with 15 points. So that was something that I don't think a lot of Aztec fans or even Mountain West fans that play close attention to the Aztecs, they don't get a whole lot of scoring. This is a team that's built on winning off of defense. But when your best player goes down and your other guys start coming in to contribute, and literally BJ Davis and Nick Boyd just took over that game. I don't know how many threes they hit combined, but they were playing well. They found their way to the basket. They were kind of dicing up that Utah State matchup zone. They were getting to the rim. They were hitting outside shots. And yeah, they did take the lead late there in the second half. And then kind of an interesting stat of the night I found on X this morning. San Diego State had a 1-point lead with about 5 and some change minutes to go in the second half. Utah State scored, I think, 8 or 10 more points in that game without actually making a field goal. So they got into some foul trouble. They got the rest of their points from the free throw line. I thought San Diego State definitely played good enough to win that game. They just kind of fell on the wrong side of the free throw stripe.
Nick, I'll throw it to you, but Tom Moser, our friend Coach Moser, mentioned that he thought the fouling, what goes around comes around, and the officiating is consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
I will never ever let, I know I saw Twitter and X, and I will never ever let it's the rarity that I will let officiating influence a game, because I thought, UNM killed them. USU figured out how to win. It drives me nuts. Nick, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I mean, Mountain West fans across the conference are always complaining about the officiating. It's just kind of part of the season. But I didn't watch the game. I did read Mark Ziegler's article in the San Diego Union Tribune. When Magoon Guath went down early in that game, I think it really changed a lot for San Diego State, considering how good he's been playing. Eric talked about the offensive struggles that San Diego State has had. I mean, think about it. This is a team that when we played them on January 11th here in the pit, they had 20 points at halftime. Mark Ziegler wrote in his column at that time that was the lowest amount of points that San Diego State had in 93 games. Bird and Nick Boyd are nice players. Don't get me wrong. But they get a lot of their points on the defensive side of the ball and on offensive rebounds. And when you have, the freshman Magoon Guath go down early, I think they really struggled against that zone. And if you think about when they played Utah State at Viejas Arena, which was it late December or early January of this year? I mean, they were up big in that game. And then, in the second half, they just couldn't put the ball in the hole. And that's kind of who San Diego State is. If they're not getting offensive rebounds, if they're not fueling their offense with their defense, if you look at their metrics in the conference, they're, towards the bottom in offensive efficiency. We'll see what happens on Tuesday. Guath possibly being down. I don't know if Amzil is going to play. But, yeah, I think San Diego State is a team that we have beat, and we can beat them again.
Kind of switching gears because we're pushing up on an hour. What you guys are looking forward to on Tuesday night when it's the old friend – I'll get to the comments at the end. I don't know. People complain about rivalries, but I don't know what you do without them. It's like keeping your enemies closer, and keeping your friends close, keep your enemies closer. Eric and Nick, you guys, again, I'm not the basketball player. I'm not the X's and O's guy. But when I do see UNM and SDSU, I get excited. If Mackenzie Bishop's watching, I can wear a San Diego Padres hat without realizing I did it, like I did in January. As I mention all the time, grew up going to a lot of San Diego Padre games. Tony Gwynn's my favorite player. I have a plethora of Mets hats and Padres hats. Nick and Eric, I'll throw it over to you. Eric, I'll start with you. You guys are looking forward to the guard matchups. Donovan Dent, True Washington versus BJ Davis and Nick Boyd.
Yeah, and I'm basing that off of what I watched, what I witnessed last night with BJ Davis and Nick Boyd and how well they played. They're two smaller guards. I think Dent is more of the height of like a Nick Boyd, but BJ Davis is kind of small and shifty. And I don't know how that's going to play out defensively, but I'm looking for that Dent and True guard matchup with those two because I think that's going to play important in this game. And then overall, the UNM's defense, I think that has to come in tip-top shape. I know that Magoon Guath's not going to play. I think it's highly unlikely. So they got two inexperienced bigs. I wouldn't really call DeGorville a big, but I know he's kind of playing a stretch 3-4 position. Not seen a whole lot of minutes, but they've got some guys that can contribute. I just think the Lobos are a little bit deeper. And if Amzo will play, that's great. I just hope that he's 100% healthy before they release him to play. So yeah, I'm just most excited about that 2-on-2 guard matchup. I think it's going to be fun to watch.
The difference in the last time these teams played was the rebound count for me. UNM won the rebound count 51-35, won the offensive rebound count 18-3, and got 10 of those 18 offensive rebounds in the first half. And I really think that was, not the whole game, but a big part of the game because that's kind of how San Diego State likes to play. UNM beat SDSU kind of at their own game. And one thing that San Diego State was doing in that game is they were switching on all ball screens. And everybody knows UNM runs a ton of ball screens with Donovan Dent. They're starting to do it a little bit more now with CJ Nolan and True Washington. And so they had big switching on guards, which created mismatches on the weak side, and it allowed Nelly and Mzeal to get 4 offensive rebounds each in that game. I think UNM had 14 second chance points in that game. Again, that's not the only story of the game. The last time these teams played, there was a lot more. Eric mentioned the defense. Philip Borovichinen did a heck of a job on Miles Bird the first time. They're going to need a similar defensive effort this time around. It's going to be a different script. It's never the same. It's never the same thing. Look at what UNM did to Boise State at home, and then look what happened on the road. Viejas is a tough place to play. The show may not be what it was 15 years ago, but it's still a tough place to play. Like Eric said, hopefully Mzeal's healthy. I just want to see the Lobos bounce back.
We're trying to wrap this thing up here, but I know I saw in the notes fatigue and health issues. Somebody in the comments, we'll find out about Amzo tomorrow. Patino has a press conference at 12:30. I'll have a preview out too. Like I said, I think it's just a weird week, and I don't know if any of you guys would agree to disagree. To go to Boise Wednesday, come back to Albuquerque. You don't play over the weekend. Then you play San Diego State Tuesday. I don't know if getting healthy obviously helps. I don't know if not playing helps. That's why they pay Richard Pitino the big bucks. But
I think the time off is definitely going to help them reset and then allow more time for these guys to kind of work through bumps and bruises, but especially Amzo with the plantar fasciitis, he's got to get right. And I think this time off, essentially a week, is going to be helpful. So yeah, we'll find out more tomorrow at 12:30.
Nick, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with Eric. I mean, we saw him try to come back. I think Wyoming's the last game he played in. I don't know if he played in the second half against Wyoming, but with an injury like that, I've never had plantar fasciitis myself. I know people who have. You just need rest, man. Trying to go 50, 60% on plantar fasciitis, you need to let that thing heal.
I have calluses on my feet, and those hurt. I can't imagine plantar fasciitis. Your dad, I had 2 people, Nick, your dad was telling me that it really hurts. Like it's the most painful thing. And then somebody else was like, yeah, I had it. It hurts. To the comments, John Romero, Ryan, my apology. Wow. This is the first time somebody's apologized to me on my own show and my own company. Apologize on inaccurate info. Oh, it's our show. I shared last week. NMSU spring game will be at Bulldog Bowl in Artesia, not in Roswell. Hope Lobos don't poach too much from the Aggies. It's the Wool Bowl in Roswell, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right. Yeah. Field of Dreams is in Las Cruces. Wool Bowl is in Roswell. Bulldog Bowl in Artesia.
Yeah. I've been to the Wool Bowl then. Phantom call at the end of the Arizona BYU game was pretty bad. Yeah, it was. I know. I always bring up the 2018 NFC Championship game. Roby Coleman, I think, was it? Or who was it? That he hit the guy, and it wasn't just pass interference. It was helmet to helmet. And the refs did nothing. Yeah, I'm not saying, there's always an exception to the rule. I just feel when I see people bitching about the referees, and I'll go to the football analogy again. DeAndre Hopkins after the Super Bowl, 2-3 weeks ago? Shut up. You got your belt to ass, Eric. They got their butts kicked. Ronnie Chavez, can you guys explain to me how literally all but 2 SEC teams are projected into the tournament or on the bubble? Georgia's 4-10 in the SEC, 16-11 are all goodness sakes. That's all it takes now. That's what the committee wants, man. And I'll talk about it. I've talked about it a lot. Do I think San Diego State is probably a tournament team? Nope. I would say at this point I'd probably take Boise, Utah State, UNM. I think somebody's going to steal a bid, and things might not be as rosy around here as they seem to be if there's some losses. But I mean, if you look at the SEC, it's kind of turned into football down there. I had it up. I mean, Florida. And by the way, I got something wrong earlier in the year. I thought San Diego State beat Gonzaga. They didn't. They beat Creighton. They lost to Gonzaga when they were 3rd in the country. But if you look at the bracketology and the standings, Auburn, Florida, and Alabama are all 1 seeds. They've all lost, 3-4 games. Auburn's lost 2. Tennessee's good. Tennessee was ranked number 1. A&M is good. Tennessee went down to College Station and beat them yesterday. Missouri is now turning into everybody's sleeper team. Who did they manhandle yesterday? Was it Alabama? Ole Miss is good. What Chris Beard has done there. Chris Jans, former NMSU, Mississippi State, they're good. Kentucky. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams are, and Vanderbilt, I think, had a big win. I think they beat Ole Miss, or did Ole Miss beat them?
No, yeah, Vanderbilt won. They're
okay.
Borderline top 25 too.
There you go. I mean, it's.
I think getting that many teams in for the SEC is justified.
Yeah,
it sucks to see that all these teams are just kind of compiling into one. But like you said, it's what they want. It's what these conference realignment things are for. And I know right now, maybe this is a hot take, but I think the SEC basketball conference is kind of outperforming the SEC football conference right now.
Oh, no, it's not a hot take. They are, and the ACC is not what it's been. Who said on College Game Day yesterday they would love to see somebody, maybe it was in College Game Day, that they would love to see Duke in the SEC? I think Duke is – I didn't understand that game last night. I had Duke -8.5. Bless them. But, man, that was a beatdown. Miguel Sanchez.
Miguel Sanchez.
Any chance with a follow-up with Kurt Roth and Mackenzie Bishop for some? We are planning on that. Mackenzie Bishop needs to get on here. I talked to him after one of the games before I got sick, and he was willing to come on. And I asked Kurt Roth what I could do for football, and he said, "Give me money," which is true. And then Infinite Consciousness, you just said UNM. Don't know what that's in response to. Miguel Sanchez again. Magoon Guath injuries. Who's a Lobo win burst their bubble? I don't know about that yet. We've talked about this, Ronnie. Hey guys, which loss is more painful? Loss to Louisville or Harvard loss? Your dad would probably say Cal State Fullerton in 78. We should beat Louisville, who ironically was coached by Rick Pitino. That team also got to the Final Four and lost to Kentucky. I believe Phil was on those teams. He was. For as our age, it's Harvard. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that. I think the Harvard loss doomed a million things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. The Louisville one would have been nice to win, but I don't think it was a shocker that they lost. But the Harvard one was rough because they were a 3 seed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And everyone was so excited about them being so right. Everyone was high on the Lobos. I even think Charles Barkley or Barack Obama picked him to make the Final Four that year too. Yeah.
Or I know Barkley did. Nick.
Yeah. Well, just the optics of losing to a school like Harvard. I mean, no disrespect. They're an Ivy League school known for so many other things. But you're a 3 seed. And I think everyone that year was penciling in UNM to get to the Sweet 16 at least. And yeah, such a deflating loss, man. I mean, for our generation, I think by far is the worst loss in Lobo history.
It's Cal State Fullerton or Harvard. I remember watching the game with a friend of mine, Damon Lucero, in 2013, and the way they just looked, I was like, they're going to blow this game. And he was like, you need to shut the F up and Just like 7-8 minutes in the game, I was like, this is not good. And they would have gotten Arizona in the second round, by the way. Arizona UNM losing to Harvard just allowed Arizona to go to the Sweet 16. I don't think they should have been in the tournament that year. I think they were an 11 seed. I think I'd have to go back and look. They just waltzed. They manhandled Harvard in the second round. Any update on Amzil's return? That will be tomorrow with Rick Pitino. Lastly, does anybody know if the Lobos are recruiting a big man to replace Nelly next year? And the Harvard game was in altitude, which should have helped the Lobos. Yes, that's true. Eric, you were going to say something, I think.
Oh no, I just know of the two commitments that they have coming in next year. Isaac Williamson and his name's slipping my mind. They're two smaller guards, but boy, those guards can score, they can shoot. Haven't heard of any big men yet.
I do have to comment on this as we were getting close to 2 hours. That'll get us out of here. Did you guys see the UNM football schedule using Family Guy talking about the opponents? Yes, I did. I'm a big South Park fan. Matt Stone and Trey Parker told me to hate. What's his name? Oh goodness. Seth MacFarlane. I do like Seth MacFarlane later. I liked Ted. I'm not necessarily the biggest Family Guy fan, but I do like in the early episodes where they did Gumble to Gumble Beach Justice. Very quickly on the recruits, I just want to throw this out there. Everybody was talking about, the Miami job might be closing, men's basketball. Indiana at the moment is probably still open, even though they won today. They came back and manhandled Purdue. Florida State is open. Just because that closed doesn't mean other people are going to get fired. Adrian Autry, Syracuse, Hubie Davis in North Carolina, Bobby Hurley over at ASU, Johnny Dawkins, UCF, Porter Moser, Oklahoma, even Fran McCaffrey at Iowa, Kyle Neptune at Villanova. He was handpicked by Jay Wright. That hasn't worked out. So I'm not going to start that conversation right now. I just think I'm throwing that out in the wind. Any final thoughts by either of you guys? I thought it was a great show tonight. Nick, thank you for Catalina Anaya. Eric, I'll thought with you with any final thoughts.
No, just really appreciate Philip McDonald coming on, giving us his thoughts, giving us some really cool Lobo stories from when he played. Would appreciate him coming on again. I think it was nice to talk with him. And I know that you, Nick, and Ed are also working on some other Lobos coming on the show, maybe in a couple of weeks. I won't give out any names because no one's committed yet, but I know that we have some stuff in the works.
Yeah, go to our YouTube channel. Nick, your dad thought it was timely, and so did I on our Lobo Legend series, which we hadn't done, to get Marvin Johnson on, who just is probably as good as Cooper, if not. I mean, he led the team in scoring that year with 24 points. To have him on to talk about the uniforms last Sunday against Utah State. That's on our YouTube page. I don't have any names committed. I am throwing them out there. Lamont Long, Charles Smith. We're trying to get those guys on. I mention it all the time. I'm going to bug Ferris because he's the best interview man. I love the guy. Nick, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just to Ronnie Chavez and any of our other listeners that are wanting to know a little bit more about bracketology, Eric, Rick, and we talked to Kevin Sweeney in the early part of the college basketball season, and he gave some really good insight on the committee's decisions last year. So the question about why the SEC gets pretty much all their teams in, I think Kevin may have addressed that. Again, I would encourage our listeners, go to our YouTube page. It should be down in the live icon somewhere, and you can find out more about bracketology for NCAA tournament.
And Rocco Miller.
We can probably, I was going to say we could probably bug Rocco one more time here in the next week or so, 2 weeks.
Who did I get the final thoughts from there? Anybody, any more?
I'm good.
That's all I got.
Looking to probably do a show Wednesday or Thursday night to recap. Football is on the way. Spring football. By the way, before I get us out of here, the UNM women's basketball team celebrated senior day yesterday. It wasn't their home game. I thought it was I thought it was actually a great decision because they could get families in town. Fun fact: Wesley Brooks is the head coach at USU. He never played basketball. He was a manager for West Virginia University and got the job. Very energetic at media days. We didn't have the pleasure of talking to him. If he's there next year, obviously. I didn't know this. Utah State was 2-24 heading this game and 1-13. UNM came out, I don't know, and they flipped the switch in the fourth quarter. Shout out to Vinay. I always butcher it, and I'm sorry. VNA Cumber, 20 points, 10 in the fourth. She hit 3 big threes and I think knocked down a free throw. One of the big threes, she grabbed a rebound, and then they played the shot clock, and then she hit another big three. And then she hit another one to put the Lobos up for good, 69-61. I thought that was great. And then the baseball team had its home opener this weekend, their home opening series. They won today for a split, 12-7. If you liked overs, that was a majority of that. So, Joe the Jeweler, great show, fellas. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it, and that's a great handle. Probably Wednesday or Thursday, we'll recap. Look out for another Lobo Legend series, hopefully on Friday. Air Force is here next Sunday at noon, just an FYI there. Appreciate Philip McDonald. Nick, you and your dad, Ed Nunez, appreciate it. With Catalina Anaya from St. Pius, and I got to go to the game on Friday night to see, and good to see Ryan Myers and everybody at St. Pius, and Halsey and Bill Torres and everybody there. Not that anybody cares. Everybody have a great night. Enjoy the game Tuesday night. On behalf of Eric Moulton, Nick Nunez, Ed Nunez, Jacob Neff, Rick Thompson, I'm Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. Don't do anything that I would do. Be safe.